I think it's a session at 4:30 p.m., but we're going to make it as interesting and as interactive as possible with the esteemed panelists. We're going to talk today about one of the big buzzwords, cybersecurity. In a rapidly evolving digital landscape, digital transformation sits at the top agenda of every society, every government, every company. And at the core of every digital transformation sits the cybersecurity. Innovation in cybersecurity for long has been more of a patchwork, addressing basically incidents and breaches reactively. And I think this has got to change. This has got to change with the data, with the insights, with the AI that we have. And the solutions and the vision is basically to have a simple solution, a holistic solution that can offer a seamless and consistent experience across all touch points of every single user or organization or a digital experience. And we're here today to explore with the industry leaders their insights on this change, its drivers, and the horizon of cybersecurity. We're going to start basically with the security span. We're going to basically have Maria's view on that. I once heard a security officer quoting, "We wanted to approach security as one integrated ecosystem to ensure defense in depth." And I found this challenging in light of the fact that we have more than 3,500 security vendors, where each can offer a different security capability. And also 85% of the IT leaders think that they don't have adequate services or security solution, despite heavily investing in top-notch solutions and products. What's your opinion? What's, in your opinion, is the right approach for market optimization of digital acceleration security spend, Maria?
Thank you very much, and pleasure to be here. Glad to see that some people still survived. So that's a perfect question, and let me split the answer into two parts. I think security in depth or defense in depth is obviously a very important topic, and this is one of key 5 principles of cybersecurity. So the other ones, as we know, is the least privilege or separation of duties, and one more is KISS, which means keep it simple. So as long as we want to keep cybersecurity in depth and defense in depth, we want also to keep it as simple as possible and couple it all together. You don't want to create additional holes in your system by doing that. And coming back to the core of the question in terms of optimization, I think we need to come back to our strategy in terms of digital transformation or wireless network rollout, what we want to do, how we want to do it. And putting down this question and answering one will help us to come up with an optimization of our spending. So I will give you an example of a question we can answer, right? What kind of deployment model we anticipate? Is it going to be on-prem? Is it going to be hybrid model? Is it going to be cloud model, right? What kind of architecture we foresee? Are we looking, for example, if we talk about 5G wireless, C-RAN, V-RAN, O-RAN? Are we looking at MAC, right? Are we looking at other tools we want to deploy in our network or our digital footprint? By answering these questions, we are not only optimizing our spending and not only predicting that, but we also keep it within a timeline of our digital transformation or a network rollout. I'll give you also an example in terms of, I'm sorry talking so much about 5G, but it's very important. When you started in, from day 0, you need to ensure that you have a right supply chain in place, right? And your supply chain is also part of your cybersecurity. What you have, if you have a bug on your chipset, right? What is your control access system? So this security span should be done from day zero, right? But why you need to do network slicing security, or why you need to look into software-defined network security, which is also important if you're not doing it right now, right? So if you build this roadmap, if you build this timeline right, and you plan it properly with your cybersecurity experts, you don't need many, then I think you will be very successful in terms of optimizing your spend and removing all unnecessary capex, right, or opex, whatever, how you put it in your financials. So same as you go into this grocery store, right? When you compile the list of all what you want to buy in the store, then you'll be successful with it, right? Otherwise, you just go out buying lots of things, and some of them are just simply not needed.
Thank you, Maria. Mohammed, from your experience as a managed security service provider, some research said that average of security solutions per customer or per company is anywhere between 50 to 70.
True.
What's your insight on that, and what's your views on what Maria basically was saying?
Well, actually, I'd like to start where Maria stopped with the grocery example, because a lot of IT and cyber leaders find themselves applying for the budget and then starting shopping with too many vendors, going for solutions after solutions, and that may give them a false sense of security, that we did all the effort, we spent all the budget, but they forget to optimize it, and they might not even build it based off evaluation and assessment. So security solution that applicable for my business might not be applicable for your business. As a security solution that provide you with complication and integration with too many technologies might not be the right option for you. You might start looking for seamless integration solution with your environment. And let's not forget that vendors comes with their own risk factor. So part of any cybersecurity regulations or cybersecurity frameworks, at least the common that I know, there is a big part or domain of third-party cybersecurity management. So if you're managing like 20 vendors or managing 70 to 80 vendors, it will be a huge burden on your team and resources. So the vendor usually can be optimized and can be a good option for outsourcing some of your risk, but you need to balance it between consolidating and diversifying. So that's my input on this. You need to balance it between consolidation and diversifying.
Thank you, Mohammed. Alain, in that context, and as a security vendor, how do you see the trend in the security spending?
First, I agree there are too many vendors. I think we are going as a community towards a consolidation that is absolutely necessary to reduce the complexity of this mosaic of products, security products, IT products. That is the result of what we've been doing in the past, and everyone here in this room, including me, carries a responsibility. We used to call it the best of breed. So anytime there was a new problem, a new platform. Anytime there was a new device, another new platform. But now, if there is one word that needs to, in my opinion, come out of a debate like that, is that security must be holistic. There is application, infrastructure, users, cloud, you name it.
Yeah.
But if you have for each of these compartments, of this segment, one platform that doesn't talk to the others, you're not secured.
Correct.
Because it's the interaction between these platforms that create vulnerabilities.
It's no more the best of breed of each solution by itself. It's about the holistic integration across the many solutions to come up with a simple experience for the user or for the IT SecOp or for the network SecOp.
The value comes from the integration rather than the intrinsic capability coming from the data sheet of every single component.
Yeah. Thank you, Alain.
Maybe I can add to that, Zayan, to whatever Alain was saying. So we are at Vodafone, we just launched recently, so like we are quite young, right? And one of the key things we decided to do in the cybersecurity is to only partner with strategic vendors and not to play with the best of breed. Because we wanted to be very efficient, we wanted to optimize the resources. We're coming young, we want to stay lean. And that was really key. You know, we decided on a few strategic ones and the integration between them, that made the whole difference. And you can see the value. I mean, just connecting everything together, you'll need an army to do all that, something that you cannot really afford these days. So yeah, agree with you.
This brings me again to the technology landscape. And basically, we see the technological development are making way for more sophisticated cyber attacks and a new invisible attack surface. What's your take on that, Jaifar?
Oh man, we can talk all day about cyber attacks on telco. Let me give a bit of brief and wake up the audience a little bit, okay? So historically, we've been seeing threat actors and hacking groups targeting telcos for one reason mainly. It was espionage. It was all driven by espionage. That was the main motivation and drive. However, what we are starting to see now these days, there's another trend picking up, which is the financially motivated groups. And that is really, picking up heavily. This financially motivated attacks are driven by two main factors. One of them is the rise of data brokers in the dark web. These days, having access can be lucrative. You don't have to exploit it. You don't have to do anything with it. As long as you just get it, you can still sell it for the dark web for a very good sum, especially if it's a remote access or if something that can get you to a core system or something like that. That's worth a lot. The second one, which is driving a lot of these financially motivated attacks, is the SIM swapping attacks. And SIM swapping, it's a whole another game. Why? Because we as telco now becoming as the authenticator of identities. We are playing a big role in authenticating people, and we're becoming like a trusted identity provider. So all of these banking apps, all of these cryptocurrencies exchanges trust the mobile number of the individual to be with him. He will have an OTP. He will authenticate himself. So these SIM swapping attacks became really heavily targeted. So let me give you an example, right? There is one operator in South Korea who was targeted just for a single individual. The whole operator was targeted through a signaling attack, not after the information, not after the intel or the CDRs or anything like that. It was because there was a single individual who was a customer with that operator who had a big account in Coinbase, and it was worth the effort. And this dude, he wakes up in the morning and he sees in his message an SMS saying, "Welcome back to South Korea." And he did not travel. And he knew that something went wrong. But by the time he called the operator, the attack was already happening. It was an SMS interception where they changed the VLR address, so the SMS was basically sent somewhere else, and his account was cleared from Coinbase. So cryptocurrency is also driving, and it will continue to drive. We see a lot of these cases happening even in the US, in Europe. Sometimes it's not even sophisticated. The case of South Korea is super sophisticated. That is a sophisticated attack. But on the other hand, we've seen like one case at T-Mobile where it was a simple go to store, go to the retail, claim this person identity and say, I want another SIM card. I lost my SIM card. Can I have a replacement? And it actually happened. His SIM card was replaced to someone else. They took the SIM card, logged into his Coinbase again. They took 100K out of his account in cryptocurrencies. Next day, the guy filed a lawsuit against T-Mobile worth $1 million. So these will continue increasing. The financially motivated attacks are really heavily increasing on the telecom sector. I can give you other examples if you want. And espionage in the region. So we talked about financially motivated, but when it comes to espionage and information warfare and all that, there is a lot of it happening in the region as well, in the Middle East. One of the recent attacks that happens against one of the telecom operator here in the Middle East, it was investigated by Sentinel-1. I'll tell you the whole attack scenario, right? So you can imagine how we can prevent something like this, okay? What these guys did is they did some reconnaissance. They went online, LinkedIn, checked who's working on the operator, who are the admins, who are the one with system access, figured out their mobile accounts, their mobile numbers, and then they send them a WhatsApp message. This is the actual scenario, right? They send them a WhatsApp message, and within that WhatsApp message, there was a link to a Dropbox file. Regardless of the story of the social engineering, these guys, they clicked on the link, they went to the Dropbox file, they downloaded the file which was malicious, it had malware. From there, they went to the AD, they grabbed all the credential, and then they started moving laterally inside the telco operator until they deployed the backdoor there, and they started really, exfiltrating CDRs and information like that. What's interesting about this case, forget about all this. What's more interesting about this case, let alone that it's in the Middle East, the way they funneled, the way they exfiltrated the data, they went through SOHO routers. You know the routers that you use in the offices and the homes? The
Yes.
small routers, right? They're full of vulnerabilities. And this is a big topic here in the GCC. So they started, connecting and funneling all this information through these routers back. So that was another one.
Thank you, Jaifar, for this great insight. Nicolai, you're managing Help AG as a CTO, and I believe you guys are seeing you have a great exposure on the market. You could be seeing the trend change in the internet and in the technology landscape from connection first to application first, from some encryption to full encryption, from fixed architecture model to cloud and application. What's your thought on this, and how are you addressing the market, this complicated market with this technology shift?
So first of all of these changes that we talk about changes the way that you need to think about security. And I think many clients, both in the enterprise segment, but also in the telco segment, of course, need to kind of understand those changes that is required for making that kind of move. That's one element of it. So there's a change in how we need to think about security. Consolidation is one of the things. It's also about understanding which kind of areas do you need that kind of point product, because you're not able to do it with the consolidated platform, right? So I'm not saying that one platform fits everyone. You still need to focus on those specific risk areas. Another thing that I think that anyone should be considering today is, can you prevent everything, right? So today, most of the strategies of an organization is to make sure that you will never ever have a cybersecurity incident, right? The same way that we were talking about redundant infrastructure just before in the environmental panel. Well, maybe that's a wrong way of thinking about that. You're not utilizing half the capacity in the infrastructure. So one of the things that I see changing a lot with enterprise organizations is that they kind of assume that they will have an issue at some point of time. And then the question also becomes, how do you make sure that that does not become an outage to the organization? How do you make sure that that cyber event becomes a manageable event from a business perspective? So how do you recover quickly? How do you make sure that the breach is not significant? And you talked about encryption. I think encryption holds a lot of the keys that we need to think about when we're also talking about one of the big dominant elements of financially motivated crimes, and also state-sponsored for that matter, which is exfiltration of data. So I think we have a lot of good tools in the toolbox, but they're still not being applied in the right way. And then there's some fundamental, very low-level issues that we see today. We have the fortune of being able to operate a DDoS prevention service, which is integrated into the EAND infrastructure and Etisalat infrastructure. And we see 150,000 unique attacks every single year. That's every 5 minutes. So while we're doing these talks, right, we would have seen 20, 25 different kind of unique DDoS events, which is really crippling for organizations. So all of these things needs to be taken into account when you're thinking about the risks that you have when you're operating. And very much, as you said, cybersecurity today is a day zero job, because that digital transformation, if you don't do security correct from the beginning, it may actually be a disruption to your organization instead.
Thank you, Nicolai. I think, Alain, back to you. If we look at the example provided by Jaifar, we talked about importance if we are crafting a cybersecurity strategy, probably making sure that we have a good strategy in terms of building a solution for user protection, and also from what Nicolai was saying, how important it is to be ready for breach protection. If I want to tackle with you the cloud protection, how important do you see the cloud native security solutions, and what are your thoughts on that?
I think the cloud is perhaps the biggest trend we ever witnessed in IT. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars of investment every year with a double-digit growth. And that, in some cases, can be said have saved our digital world during the pandemic, for instance.
Yeah.
The fact that we could access to data from everywhere. But at the same time, it creates these business opportunities. It carries its lots of vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Equally as any advanced technology or advanced deployment of collaboration everywhere. So, in general, the clouds are very well protected intrinsically, i.e. the infrastructures that are within the clouds, not only because Fortinet is a big provider of security in the clouds, but also because the design has been done in such a way that it preserves cybersecurity. But that does not put us, cybersecurity officers, off the hook. Because no matter how the infrastructure is secured, you are still responsible, any of us in this room, of the data of your customers. Yeah. And the law, and there are new laws coming every day, which is another challenge that we have to face with. None of us was hired because he's a good lawyer. However, the legal framework is very important. Here's something that is necessary, because we create new possibilities. The cloud is an extended possibility of our capabilities, hence new situations, lots of benefits, and additional risks. Yeah. So there is a whole lot, again here we could use again the word holistic. There is an entire sequence of risk, and I liked the emphasis that you put on the risk. It's something that you have to manage. It's a new language that technical people have to learn, because it's not the typical bits and bytes and technological dimensions. It is a dimension in which the probability, the exact assessment, and the cybersecurity play a role. Yeah. And the cloud is an amplifier of these trends as well.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Nicolai to dial down on data privacy here. And we're extremely lucky here that we live in this part of the region where our markets are regulated by robust cybersecurity frameworks. But that said, can you shed some light on how data privacy today is under the spotlight, specifically with the new emerging technologies?
Yeah, so data privacy is a very, very key. It was about data privacy, right?
Data privacy.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Sorry,
yeah.
It's very hard to hear up here. So
we're facing some.
Yeah, so data privacy is a key element. I think in certain parts of the world, it has been a very, very big topic for a long time. I'm sure that you, Alain, has been working a lot on GDPR and other elements, and that's happening right now here. I think the key element of data privacy, of data in general, is that organization needs to understand that data is both an asset as well as it's also a liability that you need to deal with, right? It's not free to harvest, store, and have data on individuals. And I think, since we're at a telecom event, right? I think telcos, they have very, very sensitive information about individuals, right? You know how people are browsing. The minute that you sign up for a mobile plan, you also sign up for that mobile operator to know your whereabouts every time that your phone is with you, because otherwise the service wouldn't work, right? So that kind of responsibility of that specific kind of data is extremely important. Specifically, of course, when you're starting to think about how do you monetize, how do you utilize that data for more clever business decisions. So overall, data is a key element today and will be a key discussion point for the next many, many years. Probably very important is that consumers that's utilizing services, they expect that kind of respect around the data. So that's I think something for everyone to understand. We're very mindful about the fact that that data is important.
Thank you, Nicolai. Maria, what's your take on that from a global perspective? Probably experience in the North America or other markets.
Right. So data privacy is important, right? And I'll try to be short here, right? Every single cybersecurity attack, on average worldwide, according to statistics, and I checked it yesterday, cost an enterprise between $4 to $5 million. It's for U.S. market, it's about $10 million. More than 80% of enterprises face cybersecurity attacks. More than 80% face the cybersecurity attacks more than twice. So the problem of data privacy is very important. In the introduction of new emerging technologies, the introductions of CNFs, network slicing, introductions of different kind of APIs, it became a big important thing for all cybersecurity companies to keep the data privacy safe. Apart from financial impact, it's also a compliance thing. So in Europe, as you know, that is general protection law about data privacy, and if you are non-compliant with this law, you also can face financial challenges from the regulatory authorities, and outside of that, it impact to the image of the company. So that's why data privacy and data breach are so important.
Thank you, Maria. I'll go back to you, Alain. Here, we're in an era where there's a shift from standard cyber threat detection to predictive analytics. What's the role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity defense systems?
Well, artificial intelligence is a wonderful tool and a wonderful risk because it enables a deep level of correlation between events that are seen as totally independent and they are not. The origin of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity is that when the complexity of the phenomenon we have to deal with, there are many types of attacks, many sources of viruses, many scenarios, we have to, in real time, make sense of the combination of all these events to actively and on a good day, proactively understand what may come around the corner. I can take an example that in this room will resonate to almost anybody. It is 5G. 5G carries an enormous positive potential for business, for technology. But it's a lot more than a fast 4G. It is a more complex architecture. And the number of parameters that have to be correlated to get a bird-eye view of the threat requires artificial intelligence to classify, to identify, to recognize, to detect, and to react to response. Hence the importance of the R in EDR, XDR, where you have to orchestrate the response taking into account a very large number of parameters. This is where we go into proactive cybersecurity.
Thank you, Alain. Jaifar, sorry.
No, it's just about AI and how it's actually impacting also the attack side, right? So I think what we've seen in the last 12 months has been the industry of attacks have really, really increased dramatically, right? I think the top 10 malware groups around the world, they do more than 80% of all attacks today. And largely that kind of industrialization of attacks have been let's call it powered by AI. You know, it's easier for the attackers to generate trustworthy phishing campaigns, as an example, right? I come from Scandinavia. We have very small languages with small countries. So phishing, yes, happens. Spam emails happens, but it would typically not be in our own language. Happens right now. Japan almost never had any kind of issues with phishing because it's such a difficult language to write. Now it happens, and it's all powered by AI. So we have actually, both from a perspective of utilizing for a protection perspective, we also see it really empowering the attackers. So that's something that we need to be aware about, and a challenge that we have to deal with right now.
Thank you, Nicolai. Back to you, Jaifar. So
I'll add to what Alain said about 5G. There's a fundamental change when we go to 5G standalone, because don't forget, once we go with a standalone architecture, right, we will leave telecom proprietary protocols behind us and we will move into HTTP2. And that will open a Pandora box into the telecom operators. All of a sudden, even people with IT background, they will be able to exploit, and anything related to HTTP will be vulnerable in the telecom. You know, it was always segregated because of the, you know, the proprietariness of each protocol, but that will not be the case anymore. That will introduce further challenges on the 5G, absolutely. Now, when it comes to AI, there are two distinctive things we have to know. So I think a lot of people now, they're aware. All the excitement is around the generative AI, right? So when it comes to generative AI in cybersecurity, they're not much there. There are few initiatives, few projects. Microsoft is trying to do the Copilot, especially for security, so there's a Copilot security. And there's another vendors as well trying to do generative AI for the security professionals. And for sure, without any doubt, this kind of products will change the way we're doing monitoring today. I don't believe we will continue seeing L1 and L2 analysts, security analysts with all of these capabilities. Their role will have to shift. You know, all of these tasks can be handled by the generative AI, so we don't need like human beings trying to push tickets and doing, you know, silly tasks at the SOC level. But then the more powerful part is also what we have been doing all these years, which is all of us have access to AI. If we use iPhone or Android, we are all using AI. ML machines learning and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things. Let me give you one example. This is an example I really love, Alain and everyone. There's this company, it was founded by some of the PhD holders in the US, and their whole service or solution was around predicting the next attacks. Only on prediction, that's all what they do. They don't do anything else. And they've been successful in doing that. Let me tell you a fact. They have predicted the SolarWinds attack 3 months before it actually happened. And I was like, I challenged the CEO. I was like, how did you do it? You know, what's the secret sauce? How do you do it? And the idea behind it is very simple. What do these guys do? They are monitoring all the BGP routes announcement, all the DNS new records. They're tracking all the DGA, you know, the dynamically generated algorithms for the malware. They're crunching all of these data. And from all of this, they're able to say, this specific subnet is being prepped for something, for a malicious act. We don't know what is that yet. So when they flagged the SolarWinds, they didn't know it's going to be a SolarWinds vulnerability, the Russians will be in the use. They didn't know any of that. But they knew that this specific subnet is being prepped and it's getting ready to be used for command and control for malicious act. And that's enough information for you to take precautions and prevent it from that. And it's a very nice and beautiful use case. Us as Vodafone, we've been also, you know, doing heavily machine learning in so many aspects. One of them, which I think is a challenge for all other telcos as well, is patching and vulnerability prioritizing. How do you prioritize? I mean, today, how many criticals and high vulnerabilities do you have? In the hundreds and the thousands, which one do you pick first? Which one do you prioritize? Which one do you tell the business, this is an emergency one and we need to stop now and do it? And no, the other ones I can still, you know, accept the risk. And with this, some of the vendors, they do a lot of machine learning on this and they take lots of factors into this. So who are the threat actors that are trying to look at my organizations? Is this being exploited in the wild? Is there an increased activity on this vulnerability specifically? And all of that will give you an indication that, okay, I need to prioritize in this scenario. Another area is also threat hunting. Threat hunting is also being heavily used by machine learning, and oh, that's a really nice one, Alain. Because if you think about it, I mean, what do we know? We don't know. We don't know a lot about our environment, right? And we can be surprised by any time. But with threat hunting, the idea is to have humans looking into logs, but how many logs will they look at? How many telemetries will they look at, especially as we scale? So you need some machine learning to look at all these things. We do about like 5,000 to 6,000 per day that are just, we consider them leads. They are just threat hunting leads. They go into an ML, and from all of these 5,000 or 6,000, probably 2 leads or 3 leads will be looked by a human at the end of the day, and they will be ruled that oh, it's a false positive, or it could be leading to a further investigation or something else. And yeah, there are other also scenarios where we use also machine learning, but maybe I'll leave the room for the others.
Thank you, Jaifar. Thank you. I think you shed a lot of light on how AI can basically help in the cyber defense itself. But also, probably with Mohammed, how do you think AI can help you in your security operations centers, in your CDC centers?
Okay, well, artificial intelligence is well known for automation and reducing the manual work. So we witnessed a lot of, or at least some organization who replaced the line 1 at the Security Operations Center by artificial intelligence. So taking the most common and repetitive work into artificial intelligence by identifying it, define it, utilizing and building over the machine learning to automate most common asks. And this is the good part of it. As we know, artificial intelligence has the other dangerous side where we are building and contributing to harden organization while criminals are our classmates or studying with us, learning about it and utilizing it against the organization. And this is a huge responsibility that it's not an option anymore. You have to adopt it, you have to learn about it, you have to make sure that you utilize it and optimize it for your own organization hardening.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Zayan, can I add something if we have time? Do we have time?
Yes.
Okay.
We have 18 times. Please
Good.
go ahead. Yeah.
One more thing, which is very important, is threat actors these days, they know that we are doing all this effort. We're not in a closed room where we're trying to discuss
Absolutely.
our tactics and procedures. So this is all in the open, right? And they will do something to counter that, for sure. So one of the strategies that threat actors are following these days is being malware-free. So once they are inside an environment, they don't want to drop any malware because it could be picked up easily by an EDR or something like that. EDRs are becoming very smart tools these days. So they go there and they use native tools of the operating system. They will use the command prompt, the PowerShell, whatever tools that are within the operating system. And without a machine learning that can analyze the behavior and the inputs within each operating system, you will never be able to pick this up.
Absolutely.
And that's why so many cases, you know, it was just a simple phishing or social engineering just to get access. Once they are there, they stay dormant for years because they did not drop any files. They just used, you know, they just acted like a normal employee with privileged credentials. But these ML and AI can help us a lot by flagging these stuff. So,
and by building probably the cyber hunting frameworks, right? That you repetitively use during cyber hunting exercises. So
absolutely.
You probably could get use of AI.
Absolutely, absolutely. User behaviors, I mean, the more we scale, user behavior is another one that we also use heavily AI for.
Very important.
They're very important. I mean, you know, and that's what could lead you to a compromise. You know, you see someone logging in from 2 different countries in a short span. You know, for you as an analyst to go after each user, how many times will that take you? But an ML can run it all the time, you know, in the background. Correct. And then just flags it to you. So it's very powerful tools, yeah.
Great insight, Jaifar, thank you. Maria, ultimately cybersecurity is a science. It's an area of basically risk management. And today organizations exert major efforts to develop risk management plans, including risk identification, risk impact, risk treatment plans. Does this help in predicting cyber risks? And how should organization basically anticipate risk?
It's a good question. It's also back to the predictive analysis, what we have been talking about. Cybersecurity is all about detection, prediction, and response, right? So when you build this proper risk analysis and apply these AI tools that we have been talking about earlier, then you can achieve the best possible result, reducing the possible cybersecurity attack risk by 50%. Obviously, I wouldn't involve too many people, too many cybersecurity experts into this one exercise to make it more concise, but this risk analysis will combined together with AI tools will give the best possible results. In fact, I wanted to add something about AI tools and use cases which can be applied. Earlier today, Etisalat CEO, he mentioned, look, we have so many AI tools in our pipe, like 600 or 1,000, and I don't really know how many of those are needed for my company, right? And he's absolutely right. In fact, every case starts with assessing the business need for that. And I think two aspects here are important. Number one is what are the benefits and you can reap from employing this AI tool in terms of risk assessment and prediction. Number two, how fast can you deploy this AI tooling in your cybersecurity framework? So,
thank you. Mohammed, what's your views on how organization basically should anticipate risks?
Well, actually, cybersecurity is ultimately meant to enable business, not to stop it or be in the showstopper by rigorous risk prevention. But enabling business would require the cybersecurity leader to be fully aware of the organization business. And that would make them able to contextualize the cybersecurity solutions against the business demands they have. And let's keep in mind that business risk is bi-directional, where the risk coming after you. In another scenario, the risk, you go for it when you decide to invest in a new business line or when you decide to publish a new interactive service online. When the business demand for such a thing, cybersecurity leaders should enable them, provide an alternative solution or alternative way of securing it and accepting it. However, managing the risk, you mentioned identification, impact. Another key factor for that is the likelihood of such risk. So you don't want to invest or find yourself consuming a huge budget like $10 million to mitigate a risk impact of only $2 million, for instance, or a risk that has a very low likelihood to happen. So with that, cybersecurity leaders must be fully aware of this, fully aware of the business needs and requires, and then they should start mitigating it by balancing both of proactive and reactive equipment. So they need to keep the monitoring, the incident response, as well as the threat hunting and preparing for future possible risk that is about to happen. And that can be forecasted by the historical data and the trend that we have through the years, where we can identify the pattern and the season, and from there we can expect the next pattern to happen. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohammed. Nicolai, they say 80% of the breaches, they start with emails and phishing. So do you agree with that? And what's again your insight on how organizations should anticipate risks?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
So it said, 80% of the breaches, they start with emails.
Yes, probably maybe even more.
Yeah.
Let's call it messaging systems, right? So whether it's email, WhatsApp, text messages, again here, service providers, they have a responsibility as well because they carry a lot of those text messages, so they also hold a lot of the solution to dealing with some of these things. I still think that the investment should be proportional to where you see the most of the risks, right? So, messaging services is something that organizations need to look into from a cybersecurity investment perspective. I think WhatsApp, as an example, is a very, very interesting cybersecurity challenge because everyone utilizes it. It's end-to-end encrypted, which means that we cannot really see anything that's happening inside of WhatsApp. And it has a direct foothold on the end users' devices, right? So from that perspective, I think we have some challenges there, which, at the same time, as a cybersecurity professional, I would also be uncomfortable if people could look into my WhatsApp messages, right? So I also like the end-to-end encryption, but I'm probably very different to, I normally call it the test is my mom always. So if she would need some help in order to figure out what's good or bad, then it's because we failed as cybersecurity professionals to make the right kind of solutions for them.
Yeah, you're touching something very important here, which is the human dimension of cybersecurity. I think education and training are very important factors of security. We call them the human firewall, right? So we are the number one in firewall, but we believe also that a properly trained organization is very efficient against the cyber risk for two reasons. The first is it would recognize faster all the emails attack that you described. And there will be some that won't be recognized, let's be fair. But also it will help us as cyber officers to rally people into the security tent, to make the security a cause outside IT and outside the security operating center, so that behind every user there is cyber culture that raises.
Yeah.
And that's an important factor as well.
Yeah, thank you, Alain. Jaifar, talking about the risk management, and I think you're absolutely sometimes facing this challenge with the business people, right? How to balance between the risk management factors that you're taking and your risk policies, and between the impact on the business, right? And I think AI, again, and automation could help here sometimes tie to, I've seen an initiative at one of our customers talking about what we call it cyber to business, right? And balancing between how much measures you should take and how strict you should be in your risk factors against the impact on the business. How do you treat with this in real life with your colleagues and peers at Vodafone?
To be honest, we wanted to have people more relaxed and flexible. My style is not to restrict people. I don't like that, but I like to have full visibility on what's going on. So that's one of the things. Echoing on the education, we need to simplify the messages that we send as well. I mean, if we look at the case of what's that? The casinos in Vegas. I don't know what that they called.
Yes. Yeah.
It was just a failure of help desk not able to do proper just password reset. I mean, if you fail at something as simple as that, it can compromise the whole organization. MGM, exactly. Yes, the MGM case. So all of these things, sometimes it comes down to a simple approach. So at Vodafone, they do something that they try to also, because we have a lot of policies and a lot of processes, and it gets complex. And people who are working in this sector, they can understand that and digest it. But then how do you translate that to the average employee, right? So they had one initiative called the Cyber Code, where we simplify everything. We simplified it to just 7 messages, illustrated by pictures and very simple, just a sentence or two. So these people can pick up these things easily. So I think awareness and how do we approach awareness is also very important.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe one comment. I also think that there's plenty of elements that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis for end users, which is just unfriendly. Passwords, as an example, right? The whole concept of authentication, which is still today a huge issue for individuals to deal with, right? And we still haven't figured out a good way of dealing with that as an industry. You know, here in the UAE, we're fortunate enough to have the UAE Pass, which is a fantastic application because it ties in your identity card with your authentication process towards government sectors. I'm really looking forward to seeing that being adopted by organizations that's relying on identifying you as well, right? So it does not just need to be a government entity. So I think there's good stuff coming, but it is challenging for end users, right? So that's what we always have to remember.
You know, saying on the password thing, I mean, imagine Microsoft have been saying for years, you need to have a complex password, this and that, until just lately they said, you know, we changed our mind. Now, put the password as never expire, but have it more secure. Because they realize, you know, the human factor. If you ask them to, you know, create a new password every 30 days or 60 days, you'll end up with weak passwords at the end of the day. So sometimes also we need to be realistic of our expectation. It's easy to set a complex thing or add security and, you know, on the expenses of the user experience and the user usability as well.
Yeah,
Very true.
yeah. Education, I believe, and awareness is absolutely a very important step towards building a successful security strategy.
By the way, service providers, they know their customers, right? They could be they are a key element of being able to solve that identity challenge as well, right?
Nice.
Thank you. Any final call out, closing note, Maria, from your side?
No, I think we are good. We covered everything.
Thank you, Maria. Mohammed?
I think the challenge is high and getting higher. And lucky we are in a region where we have strong regulations and frameworks to depend on and build on. So we are in a good shape, but we need to keep it up, hopefully.
I think maybe two things from my side, pieces of advice. First of all, remember that attackers only have to be lucky once, right? We have to be right every single time as defenders. And then I think the best piece of advice that I can give anyone is to stop and think. Very often attacks, they are meant to trick you into doing something because of a sense of urgency. So if we stop, think about if this is actually happening or not, hopefully your awareness will kick in as well.
Absolutely. Be proactive, man. Go after your user. Fish them yourself. Don't wait for the attackers to go after them. Do the whole thing yourself. Attack your environment.
Absolutely.
Go proactive, really. You know, monitor the dark web. You have, because you are against, as Nicolai said, you are against people who are working against you 24/7. Yeah. So if you just relax a little bit, you know, they just find the weakness
be
there.
on the attack and the attack
yes.
side, so that
You know,
the defense, yeah.
One last word. Our enterprises customers, do you know who they trust most when it comes to simplify the complexity? They turn to you, telecom operators. You are
Absolutely.
their preferred source of trust. So use that confidence to bring them to the next layer of cybersecurity.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you, esteemed panelists. Thank you, everyone, for the attendance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.